So for anyone that was clicking on this, expecting a reaction, we did watch this episode with the intent of doing it as a reaction. And I'll just show a couple clips here of it and let that speak for itself.
Morning, Farmer Lister. I'm just popping down to the shop to see my submarine.
Go on, come on, come on.
Okay, team, this way. No, this way. Ow!
The slime's coming home!
Yeah, Jesus fucking Christ.
Holy shit! What you just saw are the only moments of this reaction that will ever see the light of day. In all honesty, though, most of the reactions just us sitting there, so there's not much to see anyway.
Yeah.
But I figured we'd try out the show because, you know, there's a long list of shows that we've been recommended over the last couple of years in the sci-fi realm. And this was really the only one that stuck out in certain ways. More of a comedy than serious and dark, only half an hour, not 45 minutes or an hour, and only 6 episodes in the entire season. So I figured that's 3 hours. Like, yeah, we can quickly watch this first season and give it a try. You know, there's fans of this show. And I guess I'll just start out with my one defense of it being that if, you know, when it comes to comedy, it's, you know, all subjective, and, like, if you find this show funny and we don't find the show funny, there's no, like, arguing over that. Like, it's just, like, that is what it is, what you find funny. Outside of that, though, maybe 7-8 minutes into this, I was like, what the fuck? Like, it was just, like, not only was it not what I expected in a bad way, but it was, like, I just can't understand. I'm, like, so confused.
I hated almost every minute of this. I have something called the 5-minute feeling when watching films. I had the 2-minute feeling when watching this. Just very unlikable characters, just joke. Please, something's got to happen. You got to react to something. Please, God. Oh, we only got 30 minutes. Never stop talking. Fill time. It's like there's great moments in sitcoms where there's no dialogue happening, and it's through like some sort of action that some sort of comedic thing is happening. And the only, like, one of the few laughs that got me was the chicken noodle soup thing, because that was okay, the show got me for a second.
That
okay,
was the first scene.
yeah, it's like, okay.
Yep, that's working.
It's funny, just a couple little things, but as the episode went on and everybody dies and you realize, oh no, this guy's the only guy left. I'm like, I was about to walk out. I'm like, no.
The irony that, like, when he gets put in the chamber and we're like, oh, please send this guy away. But it's like, no, this is, I guess, the main character.
This is the only guy.
I mean, I thought it would be the first guy that we saw because he's, like, the first one on screen. He seems to be the main character, and the Lister guy was just like this, you know, buddy, you know, oh, I'm a dumb character, buddy side character that was annoying. And then all of a sudden it changes to where now he's kind of the main character. Obviously he comes back in as a hologram, the other guy, and that's why they set up the hologram earlier. But it's like, yeah, what you're saying about the 5-minute feeling. So, like, the opening scene was not great. And it started off, and then there was a studio audience, and I'm like, of course, I have a natural aversion to studio audience, where I'm like, oh, ugh, studio audience. But then I, you know, remind myself, like, oh, well, like, Seinfeld is a studio audience, like, How I Met Your Mother has a studio audience, like, that doesn't mean it's bad. That's just how TV was, you know,
right.
Back then, and we just haven't really watched shows in that genre or in that vein on the channel from this time, so that makes sense. So, like, okay, whatever, that doesn't matter. But I guess what surprised me about it was that it's a British show, which I don't, like, have a ton of experience with, but, like, isn't British humor supposed to be more dry and, like, witty and, you know,
Smart?
Like, I felt like I was watching, you know, something for a 2-year-old. Like,
I felt like I was watching a Nickelodeon sitcom that was filmed in the late 1980s.
And wasn't good.
Yeah, like a bad, like a
Yeah.
current Nickelodeon sitcom. There's this cat, this guy's cracking horrible jokes, and every interesting character that was, like, in the mess hall, like the 1 or 2 that, like, seemed like actual people, like, they're already gone, because everyone dies. And, like, every joke that was good, they just beat it into the ground. Like, you know, Harry, yes, everyone's dead. Sam, everyone's dead. And just, like, it was funny when it kept repeating, and then it got to a point where it's like, okay, you know,
That's the perfect example of what this show, this episode at least that we watched, perfect example of what this episode showed was a little sliver of what could be funny about this premise and like what they were trying to do and like what it did wrong. Like the fact that it was like that bit was genuinely pretty funny. Like he comes out, and the computer thing is like, "Oh yeah, they're all dead. What about this person? They're all dead." It's like that's a funny bit.
Everybody is dead, David.
Wait, are you trying to tell me everybody's dead?
It's like literally fucking shoot me in the head.
It's like you were right there. The hologram thing, like if this like took like a very low budget style, I thought that was hilarious. Like, oh, he wears an H on his head because he's a hologram because the show doesn't want to take the time to animate that he's a hologram. But then it animates him being a hologram. I'm like, God damn it, no, I don't want to see that. I think the joke is that he's wearing a fucking
that's the whole point.
That's the joke, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's like, then you show him fall through the table and like cut, like no,
And like
you missed the point.
The scenario here is that this has been 3 million years. So why would he fall through a table? As if it's his first day being a hologram when he's been a hologram for 3 million years? And you're 100% right. Like that's the type of British humor that I'm expecting.
Yes.
Like, oh, the whole joke is that he has an H on his head. That means he's a hologram instead of being a hologram. That's pretty, it can be a funny bit. And like, I thought the first hologram guy that they showed, they didn't do any like hologram stuff with him. It was just the H on his head and like making jokes about the fact that like he was at his own funeral. Like that's funny. That was funny. And then like, it's like every funny thing they set up here, they just ruined. And what's baffling of all is that like if this was some weird one-off 6-episode thing that had a cult following, okay, it just didn't hit me, it wasn't for me. But like this show has 13 seasons from the 80s to the all the way up to the I think early 2010s, and then there was a 2020 season that happened. I saw it when I was doing research for it. So it's like,
is it the same actors or does it reset every season with a new crew?
I have no idea. I didn't look that far into it, but I doubt it resets every season. But who knows if there's been resets along the way. I don't know how British TV works. But am I going into this expecting the best show ever? Like, no, of course, I don't go into anything with that type of expectation. But when I do research into stuff that we might watch, I try to do a little bit of like, okay, what is this show? Like, is there a fan base? What is, was it successful? Because like something like Firefly, for example, even though we liked that, that was a bit like, okay, it's just one season and then it got canceled and then there was a movie. Like, how much really is there of a fan base? Turns out, we actually really ended up enjoying that. But like, when I'm usually looking into it, it's like, okay, something like Buffy, massively successful. Quantum Leap had 5 seasons. When I look and I see that's its resume and people have recommended it to us, that it's like that it's a decent show. That it's like, the other things that we've watched that we didn't care for at their worst were like an okay show that just like didn't really get anything out of us. This was like, what the fuck? This was like, what the hell?
We've never had a reaction this painful, like to the point where like you were like frozen, and I'm like I wanted to have my own Hunt for Red October moment where I'm like I need to get out of here or break down laughing, not at the show but like how horrible this is. And we've been, around for a couple of years now, and our tastes are very established. And I'm always down for trying new things, but I've never had a reaction this painful ever. And it's amazing. It's amazing how long 30 minutes can feel. And it comes down to one word, one of our favorite words ever, execution. We watched an hour plus Game of Thrones TV shows, and it just flies by because the context and what's happening is so good. But when something sucks as bad as this, I thought like, oh my God, it's probably only been 5 minutes. Because also, dialogue too.
So I was just like in such disbelief that like, okay, something has to click here, right? Like something has to like happen to where I'm like, oh, okay, this is the show. They're just finding its footing, and it just never happened. And not only did it never happen, but it got actively worse to where by the end of the show, there would have been more of a chance for what it set up there in the beginning to like maybe there were some scraps of hope there that like I could continue on with that show. But then they kill everyone and all we're left with is the 2 unlikable characters and then this fucking guy who's supposed to be a cat, which, okay, small defense, that's a really funny idea. Like they introduced this black cat, then it's 3 million years later and it's gone through evolution and now it's this humanoid. That's a funny idea. But the dude just pops in and he's screaming at you. I'm just like, I was like, what? I was like, so I'm like, what's happening? I thought it was a prank. I was like, I thought this was a joke. I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, what is this? And then it just ended with the 3 worst characters I think I've ever spent time with in anything.
And that's your pilot.
And that's what you're supposed to want to watch.
That's your hook. That's what you show to the executives. Hey, check this out. The 3 worst characters ever. 3 most unlikable characters ever. And any interesting or likable character just dead, gone. You're just left with these horrible people. It's like, don't tell me, oh, that's the point. Like, I don't care if that's, no. I don't care.
Or again, if you just like genuinely find it funny, like it's like I can't tell you you're wrong for whatever you find funny, whatever. But it's like, for me, it's like I'm trying to think of everything that I thought was not just funny as an idea, but like actually funny. Like I thought the bit that we talked about with everyone being dead and him saying the names was funny up until they ruined it. I thought, obviously, the joke at the beginning with the soup, that was a funny little joke. I loved the whole hologram bit. And my favorite character was the bigger, seemingly American guy.
And please, take every care not to walk through them, not even when you're in a hurry. Thank you.
His character was just like sort of funny. Like every time he talked, he's like, all right, like, what's going on here? All right, everyone, listen to this here he is as a hologram. And that was a funny thing. I was like, okay, there's like little shreds of funny writing. But like you said, it was just like jammed inside of this like 1,000 bad jokes. And it's like, oh my God. I get there's a success rate with any comedy show. Like it's not going to be 100%, but it was like, I felt like an actual pain. Like I was like waiting for some type of release that I can laugh at, and it was not there. It was never there. And then there's like these little bits where it's like, oh, I guess that's all I get. It's like back to it being terrible. Oh my God.
Yeah, I've never had a. Yeah, that was one of the most painful things ever. To the point where like you just jumped to the camera to turn it off when it ended, and like, what a relief when it did end too, because I thought it wasn't going to stop.
I mean, yeah. I mean, again, like I don't know how you felt. I know you were like making comments during it about like not continuing, which like again to me was like already obvious. But like, I was out of that morbid curiosity still watching it. But like, had you said like, all right, bro, turn this off, like I wouldn't have objected. But like, I just for some reason was like, maybe it was just because my expectations weren't high, but they were at least like, okay, what is this show about? That I was just like waiting for it to. I was like waiting. I was like, did we watch the right show? Like, is this Red Dwarf?
Is this actually Red Dwarf?
But it starts off with Red Dwarf. Like, that's it.
And
Okay.
it's a sci-fi ship, so it has to be it. But yeah, you were like dead silent during the reaction to the point where like I felt uncomfortable even saying anything because I thought like, oh, Josh is probably totally checked out, or it felt like we were at a funeral and like we're watching like the death of something, and we're just. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a crisis for sure during the episode of just like, disbelief. Out of all the things I would have expected, of all the results of like, we watched this random 30-minute British comedy, like this is not one I would have even foreseen. Like I could have seen like, oh, it was just kind of shitty. Like it just wasn't that funny. Or, oh wow, that was pretty funny and clever. Like, this whole variation of what could have happened. But no, just for that to happen, like it was like what? It was like an event, a canon event.
It was an anomaly. Anomaly? Yeah, it was just an anomaly where I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Part of me feels bad that I've called anything bad we've watched.
It's like this is a different level of bad, and like you didn't even want to do this. You didn't even want to like talk about this. I'm like, Josh, we have to. Like people need to know how we think about this because I don't want anyone to know I've ever met in my life. That I have any sort of idea that I would ever continue watching the show in any sort of medium.
I wanted to put this in, dig this into the grave where only one other reaction sits next to it, and that's the Doctor Strangelove reaction.
Where I was falling asleep drunk on camera.
Yeah, and I was just, and this was me for about 40 minutes of Doctor Strangelove. So it's like kind of similar for this, except like, again, like Doctor Strangelove, we don't have to talk about it too much because no one's ever seen it. It doesn't matter. But like no one's ever seen this reaction. But like, Doctor Strangelove was just like, oh, I'm just not into this at all. Like, and just like, kind of similar to Hunt for Red October. But like this one, I was just like, my eye was twitching. I'm like, is this TV that people watch? So that's what I wanted to do. Is I wanted to be like, dig this into there and be like, okay, let's never talk about this again. And like, just if anyone ever brings up the show, just be like, no, we're not watching it. But like. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, this feels good to get off my chest. Number one, even regardless.
I
of
wouldn't be able
posting
to
it.
sleep tonight not being able to talk about this show. The entire episode, I just wanted to go like,
Yeah,
wrap it
let's
up,
go.
wrap it up.
Yeah, it was so weird to me because I guess if the first couple of scenes had been just a little bit worse, maybe I would have just been like, hey, you want to just turn this off? But like just those small little jokes, like in the first scene with like the soup, and then like there was a couple other ones where there's like just small little jokes where I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. Or like production things, like when they cut to the funeral and it was like there was a little robot going around on the floor. Like the sets looked okay, and like the production was like obviously low budget, but it was like a nice little, quirky little sci-fi thing. Like okay, like well, let's see what you got, let's see what you got. Wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
It's like, but then it was like maybe if it was just so horrendous, I would have been like, let's just turn this off. But I feel like I got enough out of those that I was like, I'm just gonna finish this episode. And it's like part of me wishes I didn't, but part of me is like, at least I could say I watched the first full episode of this and just like cemented that it was one of the worst TV episodes I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean that's the best. I don't even want to add to that. I just want to end it on those words. One of the worst episodes of TV I've ever seen.
Wow.
Yeah, Jesus fucking Christ.
Holy shit!
Bro, no.
Oh my God.
We're not. Yeah, no. No.
Holy fuck. I mean, I only finished the episode because I just wanted to finish the episode to even like, just to see like.
Were people recommending this?
I mean, yeah. I mean, not like. I mean, it's a show. It's a show that's on the list of all the other shows people have said. But, dang, I mean, that's absurd. That's absurd. Oh my God. Oh my God. Look at this. There's 13 seasons of this.
What?
13. Oh my goodness.
That was fucking
That was
one of the worst things I've ever seen.
like, dude, what should we look up? 8.4 out of 10 on IMDb.
Maybe it gets better.
I mean, maybe it gets better, but I mean, episode 1, the one we just watched, 7.9 out of 10 on IMDb.
Oh my God.
Episode 2, 8.0. Episode 3, 7.6. They're all kind of in that range.
We'll sit down. Let's.
I don't even know what to say. Honestly, I think it's for the best that we just don't ever talk about this again.
I don't know. I feel like I need people to know that I hate this.
Okay. All right. Yeah, let's do it.